Hello.
Ryan?
Hey, Kristen.
Hey.
How are you?
Just, good. How are you?
Good. Hey, how do I sound with this headset?
You sound great. How do I sound?
They sound okay. I would say same as normal on your phone.
Okay. Okay.
So I can hear you. We can try different things in the future if you don't like it.
Yeah. Can you see what is on the screen yet?
I can. And
Switching it to slideshow view.
yeah, now it looks perfect.
All right. Can you type in the question box?
Yes. And I'm gonna pull the question box all the way up like I did last time.
Okay.
Well,
Are you typing anything?
I don't know if I can because I'm the I'm admin.
Can you type in the chat box or no?
Yes.
Okay. So then I'm going to say both options to people because Erin was only typing in the chat box as well when we were practicing. So if people come through via chat or via question.
Can we just do one?
Do you think they'll be able to type in the question box?
Yeah, they did with Jeff. 96 responses.
Okay. As long as you think
Just
they
to get,
can.
just because it's hard to toggle. It'd be hard to toggle between the two.
Okay. Do you think that they can? That there wasn't something going on for some reason the way it was set up this time that they wouldn't be able to?
No, it looks the same to me.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I will still do a question then.
Yeah.
Probably because we're both the moderators of it.
Mm-hmm. So did you launch yet? Oh, you did launch.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think at any point someone could get on now. So when somebody does, then. Here's my question for you, though. Why are you not muted? Like,
because
I need to...
I'm a host.
Okay, so then
looks like we got
nobody else.
Looks like we got Freddie on already. Hey, Freddie.
Hello, it's Freddie Quintana, hearing you.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Who's talking?
Freddie, this is Ryan Gingery and Kristen Moore.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Freddie.
Good to hear you. Hi there.
You staying safe?
Yes, I'm at home, safe. Thank you.
Good. Absolutely.
Ryan, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
I think you might have just muted me.
Yeah, it was intentional. Just trying to lock you down. All right, so as people start hopping on, I guess they'll be able to hear us. The last time Jeff and I did this, you are able to just talk between the moderators until you kind of launch it, but this is fine.
Okay. Good morning. Those of you jumping on, we will start in a few minutes. Good morning, everyone. It's 11 a.m. We'll wait about one more minute and then we will get started with the webinar today. Well, let's get started. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar, All the Dirt on VCI, your secret weapon to reduce rust and increase sales. Before we get started, we are going to do a little webinar 101. So if you look at your computer screen, you see the white arrow in the orange box. Go ahead and click on that arrow for me. That's going to pop out your control panel. And in there, you're going to see an item that says questions. Go ahead and expand questions. In that box, I just want you to type yes, so I know that you can see that questions box. So go ahead and in the section that says questions, just type yes. Great. See lots of yeses. Now I want to make sure that you can see what I can see on my screen when I see it. So go ahead in that same questions box, type what you see on your screen. Good. So far, we are all on the same page. Most of you see a knight, and in fact, a knight that loves VCI. So I am your host today. My name is Kristen, and I am a project manager here at Armor, and it's my voice you're going to be hearing for the next 30 minutes. And my co-host today is Ryan. He is going to be manning that questions box. That is your place to ask us questions anytime you want throughout this presentation. And it's also the spot where you can answer questions that I'm going to ask you. So for some of you on the call today, this might just be a little reintroduction to Armor or an introduction to Armor. So for those of you who are in distribution, you know that you don't physically make a product. So your reputation and your word is incredibly important. And at Armor, while we do manufacture products, we also know that our purpose is to protect you and your customer's brand, their parts, and some would say, most importantly, your reputation. And how we do that, that's what we call our thing. We make clean, safe, and easy rust removal and rust prevention products. We call ourselves the eradicators of rust. And we're going to talk a lot about rust today during this webinar. And I'm going to use the term VCI, which is our vapor corrosion inhibiting nanotechnology, which is a mouthful. So we'll also be calling that rust prevention, corrosion prevention. I'm also going to talk a little bit about our innovative rust removal technology, which is Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. And that's located in over 9,000 retail locations, including Home Depot and Canadian Tire and AutoZone. But I think what you'll probably find most interesting today is that over 90% of Fortune 500 companies, your customers, they rely on Armor products. So now that you know a little bit about Ryan and I, you know a little bit about Armor, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to break it down into 3 categories for you. The first is how to find and diagnose rust. The second is a little bit about what is VCI and how do you use VCI to prevent rust. And then the third is how do you generate new business and increase sales. So let's start with a little science. Take a moment and think about your customers. Think about the customers whose brand you are protecting. Now, in those customers, if you have ever sold any type of packaging whatsoever to a customer that was packaging a metal part. So let me say that again. Any type of packaging to a customer that was packaging a metal part, just go ahead and write yes in the comment section. We see lots of yeses. So if you are typing yes in there, your customer knows this slide that you're looking at on your screen. And that's because your customer knows all you need for corrosion or all you need for rust to happen is that metal part that they're shipping, air, and moisture. So I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to give you the project manager information on the multiple forms of rust. But if you want to go deeper, if you want to speak about a specific type of rust issue your customer is having, type that into Ryan right now. He's going to connect you with either the technical webinar that you're looking for or with the Armor sales rep who can be able to help you. But right now, let's talk about just a few of the multiple forms of corrosion so you can know this information when you're in front of your customer. Up first is brown rust, and we call this atmospheric rust. For brown rust, the metal is exposed to high oxygen and low moisture. Next, you're going to see black rust, and this just means that the part was exposed to air but low oxygen. So if your customer is seeing black rust, you can know that maybe there was a piece of film, maybe a piece of film that did not have VCI in it that was covering the part. And the last form of corrosion that your customers could be seeing is yellow rust. And this means there's an incredibly high amount of moisture on the part, usually standing water, or maybe that part was just not fully dried before it was packaged. And again, that is as deep as we're going to go today on the multiple forms of corrosion. So now that you're a rust color expert, we need to know what are some of the reasons why our customers might see metal parts that are rusting during shipping and storage. So we have top 5. Number 5 is going to be your improper usage of VCI. In that picture on your screen, on the right-hand side on the bottom, you're going to see VCI on the outside of the box. As you know, VCI should be as close to the metal surface as possible. And when we get to that slide where I show you how VCI leaves the carrier, you'll probably say to yourself, why would anyone put VCI on the outside of the box? But it does happen. So if your customers have their VCI on the outside of the box, you can work with them on the proper usage of VCI. If you look at the top picture, they might just not be closing their VCI. We have for you, as our partners, proper usage guides. If a proper usage guide is something that you want, make sure you type that in the comment section. Type to Ryan and say, hey, send me the proper VCI usage guide. Number 4 is condensation. So you can remember number 4 because condensation and humidity is not great for metal parts and it is not great for my hair. So for humidity, we know that it's pretty straightforward. The more humid it is, the more likely we're going to have rust. But I want you to think about rust with inside of packaging because sometimes we forget to share this information with our customers. It's not just the humidity in the area, but the humidity and condensation inside of packaging. And what do I mean by that? So imagine right now trays and returnable trays. You know, for returnable trays, there's usually a spot where someone can grab a hold of the tray. Now imagine all those trays stacked together. Those handholds make what we call the chimney effect because moisture can cause normal temperatures to be accentuated inside the packaging and just means that air is moving up and down like a chimney. But as that airflow flows up and down inside the packaging as it shifts and those temperatures shift, it can cause condensation. And an easy solution that people just don't think about is either stuffing some VCI package in those handholds or maybe layering a piece of VCI in between all the returnable trays. So when you think about condensation and humidity, don't just think about the environment on the outside of the packaging, but also think about the environment on the inside of the packaging. Number 3, top reason why metal parts rust during shipping and storage is handling. So look at that picture on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see what looks like a thumbprint. And that's because not wearing gloves is our top 3rd reason why metal parts shift during shipping and rust during shipping and storage. But here's an interesting fact for the day. Women's hands are just more acidic than men. So your customer might be having new rust issues because somebody new is working on the line. And you can point that out to them. And you can also remind them that it's important to always wear gloves when handling metal parts and to also make sure that those gloves are clean because a pair of dirty gloves could be even worse than someone's bare hands. Number 2, remember how we talked about yellow rust in the beginning? This is an example of yellow rust. The number two reason why metal parts rust during shipping and storage could be that they're taken directly out of cleaning solution without being thoroughly dried. So you can remind your customers, especially if they say to you, we are seeing yellow rust, that they could either put metal parts in a wire basket and allow them to air dry. They could use forced air or heat, or if it's just not possible in their process, maybe they need to include a form of desiccant inside their packaging or an Armor VCI Smarty Pack, which is a combination of VCI and desiccant. And then the number one reason that we find that metal parts rust during shipping and storage is dirty conditions. So what do I mean by dirty? A couple different things. We mean unclean workspaces, swarf, and dirty cleaning solutions. So here's two things I want you to remember that you can share with your customer when it comes to dirty conditions. And one is swarf. So some people don't know what this is. If you think about a piece of wood being cut and you see sawdust, we all know what sawdust is. The same thing happens for metal. In metal, that carbon dust, the term is just called swarf. And swarf likes to form a galvanic corrosion cell, which is just a fancy way of saying it likes to cause corrosion underneath the other metal parts that it lands on. So we can remind our customers of swarf. We can also remind them that cleaning solutions and part baths need to have a specific pH balance in order to work. The best analogy we have for this is if you think of a big meal at your house versus a meal with just maybe your family of 4 for the cleaning bath. So my family of 4, I have the dishes, I bring them over to the sink, I fill the sink up with water, I wash those 4 dishes, and it's no big deal. Now I'm having a huge family gathering. Maybe I'm having Thanksgiving at my house, and I have grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles' dishes. I bring the first 10 dishes over to the sink. As I start washing those dishes, I realize, nothing's happening. It's my bath is dirty. And that's something that we need to remind your customers about, that it could be, and they could be having rust because the cleaning bath and the parts bath does not have the right pH. And it just needs to be titrated. Now that we know a little bit about how rust forms, and we know that there's different kinds of rust, and you know the top 5 reasons your customers could be getting rust, I think the great question to ask ourselves is, well, why care about it? And I'm going to give you this analogy because for some customers, like a quality manager, they'll care about rust right away. But for other people that you're speaking with and other decision makers, you might hear things like, yeah, well, it's a part of dealing with metal parts. Everybody has a little bit of rust, or it's just part of our process. We've just accepted it, and we have some rust, but we've accepted it as part of our process. And for the person who would say that they've accepted corrosion or rust, I would ask you to think of this analogy. If you were going into a restaurant, or if you owned a restaurant, and someone said to you, well, yeah, we have a little bit of food poisoning, but it's just a part of dealing with food. We have food poisoning, it's just part of our process. You would never eat there. And the same thing is true about corrosion and rust. You and your customers don't have to accept corrosion and rust as part of your process. Not only is it not great for their reputation, but rust is expensive. And the best way to show you how rust is expensive is to show you what we call the rust iceberg. So just like the Titanic, it did not sink because of the iceberg that it saw sticking out of the water. It sank because of running into the iceberg that it saw underneath the water, or what we call, for a rust iceberg, hidden cost. So when you look at that picture, and you can see on the iceberg the parts that are sticking out, those are the visible costs we all know, like sorting or reworking the metal. But look underneath the water, and these are the hidden costs. And there's opportunity lost in sales. And there's something I want you to look at on the left-hand side of your screen called an 8D meeting. We're going to talk specifically about an 8D meeting for a moment. If you don't know what an 8D meeting is, it's just a common term in the automotive industry for the 8 disciplines it takes to fix a problem. And the idea behind that 8D meeting is we need to identify, correct, and eliminate a reoccurring problem. So an example of something that could be brought to an 8D meeting is the cost of rust. So here's the situation you bring to that meeting. You have 50,000 units, and those units are worth $1. And then if you look over on the right-hand side of your screen, you would say, okay, 25% of those units were rejected due to rust. At first, you might think, oh, well, that's about $12,000, which is a lot. But what we want you to be able to show your customers is the additional consequences of rust or those additional costs. The customer communication, the internal meetings, the derusting, the reshipping. We have broken this down for you in the real cost of rust slide, but what I want to share with you today is that we have a specific video for you. We have a specific video for you that is the real cost of rust. If you are constantly the person who is being asked to drive the cost of VCI down, to be able to lower your cost, lower your cost, lower your cost, then you need to type in the box to Ryan and say, send me the video to the real cost of rust, or send me the link to the real cost of rust video. It will walk you through how to explain the cost of an 8D meeting to your customers. So thus far, we've talked a lot about corrosion and rust and food poisoning, but I promise I am about to make this presentation a lot more optimistic. You can prevent rust, and there are multiple ways that you can prevent rust. There's paint and coatings and oil and RP liquids. VCI is just one of those ways, but it's the one that we are going to talk about today. So go ahead and type in the box. And don't worry, not everyone can see your answers. Have you ever sold VCI? If you have, just type yes. But if you haven't, then we're especially glad that you're here, but go ahead and type no. Great. We see lots of answers coming in. So we have a kind of a split. So we're going to talk a little bit about what VCI is. So what VCI is, for those of you who do not know, is you need a carrier. In this picture, we have craft paper. And then you need VCI, which again is that vapor corrosion inhibiting nanotechnology. You take that carrier and you put it with VCI, now you have a rust prevention for your metal part. In this picture, we've wrapped armor wrap around a metal part. Let's go through that again. In the picture on your screen, you have armor poly. So now, instead of craft paper, we have armor poly that was extruded with VCI. Same concept. You have a carrier, which includes VCI. You take your metal part, you put it into that armor poly bag, and that armor poly bag prevents rust. I think this next picture, you can say, well, how does it do that? So when you take your metal part, whether you put that in your poly bag, whether you put that in paper, whether you put that in a closed space with a shield emitter, you have to imagine, and if you look at the picture of those white molecules, imagine the VCI leaving the carrier and being attracted to the metal part. Then the VCI puts a protective coating on the metal part. Now that protective coating we're talking about is nanotechnology. So if you look at the left-hand side of your screen, the Armor VCI nano coating protective coating is 4 to 6 nanometers. If you look at the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that a sheet of paper is 100,000 nanometers thick. That just gives you a good idea of how thin the coating is and how safe, clean, and easy that coating is for you to use. So as I mentioned, VCI needs a carrier. This is a picture of all the Armor family of products. But if you look, you can see different forms of carriers. So we have Armor Wrap, which is paper. We have poly. We have stretch film. We also have shield emitters and foam emitters. If you've not seen all the Armor family products before and you want to see this from our corporate brochure, type that into Ryan right now and say, make sure my Armor sales rep connects me with the Armor corporate brochure. So we have talked about Rust. We have talked about VCI. And now we're getting into that third topic. Does anyone remember, and you can type yes in the box if you remember, what was called Highlights magazine? So for me, when I was a kid, I always saw Highlights magazine in the doctor's office because my parents were not about to spend the money on a subscription to Highlights magazine and have that sent to my house. So I'd be so excited when I would see Highlights in the doctors. And for those of you who remember the Highlights magazine, you would know that there'd be different activities in it. For example, find the fork that's hidden in the tree. Or maybe you would have two pictures and you'd have to circle which one of these items is not the same in the other picture. Well, we have made for you your very own version of Highlights magazine. And we've called it Armor Protective Packaging Spotlight. And this is just your fun and easy way on how to sell VCI. So if you see this and you say, I need a spotlight, just type that into Ryan right now and he will make sure that we get you connected with your rep and get spotlights out to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to open it up and show you some of the activities inside. So first we have markets. In sales, you need to identify the markets or the opportunities. And this is pretty straightforward and simple. So if you sell to a company who produces or packages metal parts, an opportunity for sales exists. So looking at that screen, and you look at all those different markets, can someone type in the box to Ryan a customer that they currently sell into that fits into one of these categories? And then Ryan, why don't you go ahead and share with us some of the names that you're starting to see.
Will do. Good morning, everybody. I got Jared came in with John Deere. I have Claudia came in with industrial generally. I have Jim that came in with Komatsu. And I have John that came in with Caterpillar.
Nice. So what we want you to remember from markets is that your opportunities out there are vast. If you sell to a company who produces or packages any metal parts, whether that's automotive to music to electronics to jewelry, they need VCI. So now that you know what markets are out there, a great question is, well, who do I talk to? And as I mentioned earlier, Rust costs your customers money. So you have a lot of people that you can talk to. We have found at Armor that the quality department and the packaging engineers are our typical decision makers because they're the front lines of those that are dealing with Rust. But that does not mean that the other people on this page do not matter. It could be the purchasing manager who might be the exact person who needs to hear about the Rust iceberg and the hidden costs of Rust. All right, so remember how I mentioned in Highlights magazine, you used to be able to go out and you would circle the fork that was hidden in the tree or maybe the kite that was hidden on the side of the building. We've put together that same fun for you. So this we're going to walk through, which is circle the Armor VCI opportunities. Because when you're in front of those people, the people that we just showed on the slide before, it's your responsibility to be able to point out those VCI opportunities. So take a peek at this picture and go ahead and look at that and say, where are the VCI opportunities? Once you see some VCI opportunities, go ahead and write those in the box to Ryan. Nice. All right, Ryan, what are some of our webinar attendees saying as what they see for VCI opportunities?
Yeah, Claudia says the box. I'm assuming she's looking at this open box here.
Oh, yeah.
I got Ronnie saying definitely in the box by the door. Paula saying end of conveyor. Dave saying open box. Claudia, hand without gloves. That's a good one. Paula came back with storage box.
Great. You guys you're great. Exactly. So now it's like we get to flip to the back of either the math book or the highlights magazine and see all the answers. We're going to walk you through the VCI opportunities that we want to make sure you point out to your customers. And number one, you are right. This is rusty parts that are coming in inbound. I want you to remember for this that sometimes you need to talk with your customers about where the rust is coming earlier in the chain or earlier in the process. We have open garage door. We talked earlier about humidity and condensation. That open garage door is just creating an uncontrolled environment, aka more moisture or more oxygen in the air. We also have oily RP spray. For those of you who are in the field, this is where you can come in as a sales spoke and really shine. Connect with your Armor sales rep if you have a customer that's currently using oily RP sprays, and they can walk you through that transition from a spray to a clean, safe, and easy use, which is VCI. Because not only are RP sprays just a safety hazard and a health hazard for the person using them, we also know from safety managers, it's those oily floors that come from RP sprays. We also have wet parts. We talked about this earlier. If your customer says to you, I have a ton of yellow rust, you can help them by saying it could be the wet parts that are coming and being packaged before they're dry. We also have on here, someone mentioned it, no gloves. Not sure why the gentleman in this picture is wearing gloves on his right hand, but not on his left hand. But again, you can always point out to your customers that they should be using gloves when handling metal parts, and then also making sure they change those gloves out. And then last on here, we want to point out, which is what we call generic VCI or competitors VCI. This goes back to that rust iceberg or that 8D meeting and that cost of rust. And it also goes back to you having your reputation. I want you to remember from this slide that not all VCI is the same. We each have our own formula, our own lab testing. We know how our VCI compares to other VCIs in the market. I think a great analogy for this is a pair of tires. If you're out, you're buying, say, a used car, and the person tells you, well, I just put new tires on it. You think, great, new tires. And then you drive off, and about 7,000, 8,000 miles later, you're like, these treads are gone. I need new tires again. That's when you have the moment where you realize not all tires are the same. Maybe cheap tires aren't as great as a Goodyear or Michelin. The same is true for VCI. Not all VCI is the same. And the customers on this screen that you're seeing right now, they know that. And that is why we have approvals, and these customers are our Armor customers. So I want you to take a look at this, because if you see something, a customer on here, and it sparks something in you, and you say, I didn't know they used VCI, or you look at that and say, I have been trying to break into this account, or you think, I sell a lot into this account, but I don't sell them any VCI, you can go ahead and type that into the box to Ryan. He can connect you with the correct Armor sales rep who can make sure that they walk hand in hand with you, training and talking about usage of Armor VCI with these customers. So you know, sitting through this webinar, that there's rust. We know what causes rust. We know how we can prevent rust with VCI. But what I want to do for the last few moments is switch gears and talk about how Armor makes it easy for you to sell VCI. So for those of you who are selling VCI, what are some of your biggest obstacles? Go ahead and write those into the question box to Ryan, and then Ryan let us know, what are some of those big obstacles that people are running into?
Yeah, from Jared, we have getting the material here on time.
Oh, yeah.
From Dave, it's just the variance in lead times. We have another one, not always knowing what to recommend.
Great. Yep. So at Armor, we know that. So we wanted to make it easy for you to sell our products to your customers. So if you haven't heard about our Stock and Ready program, it means that these products are in stock and ready to ship out. We have 3 times the inventory of in-stock products, or about 140 items that are in stock, which also means for you there are no order minimums, and Stock and Ready orders that are placed by 1 p.m. are ready to go the next day. We've also made pricing incredibly easy for you, and it included different OEM guides as well, along with our technical lab and field support. And in here, I wanted to put testimonials, because we know that sometimes your customers just want to hear specifically how you helped another customer either venture through that rust iceberg, or how you save them time and how you save them money dealing with their rust. So if you think back to that market page, if you had a specific market you wanted to break into, say you really wanted to get into the automotive industry or into aerospace, then reach out to Ryan in that box and say, hey, do you have a testimonial about this topic? And I'm sure in our vault of testimonials, we'll be able to find something that we can help you with your customers. I also would invite you to take this time to look at our Armor website. It'll give you a little bit more background on Armor. You can go even deeper into the specific products. And I have to say, and I could be biased, I think it is one of the best corporate videos out. So if you have a few moments today, hop on that website and check out our corporate video. And then I've mentioned throughout this webinar your technical team. And these are the faces of those individuals who are going to be able to help answer technical questions. They're going to be able to talk about specific uses of VCI. They're going to be able to talk about specific products that we have with you and your customer. They are here to help you. So I would make sure that you get connected. If you notice, some of the states are covered, but we have the entire United States covered. In addition, if you look at the right-hand side of your screen, we have an international coverage as well, because Armor has a presence in over 25 countries around the world through our partners. So at this moment, to keep with the time of the webinar, I want to open it up to you right now for questions. So if there are specific questions you have, type those in the box to Ryan, and we can answer them in the last couple minutes that we're here together.
As we wait for the questions to come in, I'll just share an update on Armor's end on the coronavirus. We were deemed an essential business by the state of Michigan, so we are still up and running. We're working with a lot of customers right now as they shut down for a couple weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, on protecting their metal parts during the shutdown. We have other webinars, one this afternoon. I think we have 4 this week total on, I think it's called Quarantining Your Metal Parts, Protecting Against Rust. And so we are up and running. We are still producing and shipping product. We're running skeleton crews to make sure we're getting all orders out. And then the rest of our staff is still working, but working from home. So if there's anything that you need from us in this time, don't hesitate to reach out. I got one question here, Kristen, from Dave. It says, is there a general guide when to use paper, poly, etc.? And so I guess I'll just jump in on that one if you don't mind. I'll just say, yes, there are different applications. For the sake of time, Dave, we're going to reach out to you offline on that one, and I'll definitely get you the guide and then also talk through a couple different applications. I got another question here from Tom. He says, are your reps still making end user calls at this time? And Tom, I would say no. Even if we wanted to, I don't think our customers or prospects would allow us in. Armors, we've shut down all travel within our company until the dust settles on this coronavirus issue. But we are doing a whole lot of webinars. We're doing a lot of go-to-meetings. We can do conference calls. We're trying to keep all the projects we can moving forward, even if we're not able to physically be there. Got another question here from Jared. It says, do you foresee yourself closing down in the near future due to the virus? And Jared, I would say we do not foresee ourselves completely shutting down at any point, being that we are deemed an essential business. We have to keep up and running for a handful of Department of Defense customers, energy, and transportation, which is deemed an essential business. So no, we do not plan on shutting down. All right, I think we'll call it there. I'm turn it back over to you. Appreciate everybody's time today.
Great. And just to agree with Ryan, thank you so much for spending your time with us for these past 30 minutes where we learn about Rust and how to increase your sales. And anytime any questions come up, please feel free to reach out to us. And you will also be receiving an email from Armor with the information from today, along with links to some of the topics that I talked about. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Great job, Kristen.